Hey y'all, happy Tuesday. Today we're going to talk about building soil and feeding soil. It's a topic that I ran across in one of my Facebook groups, not my personal group, but it's one of those groups where there's a lot of experienced gardeners that are here in the valley. And so a lot of times when a question gets asked, it's just kind of like, right, this is what you do. But I felt compelled to kind of answer that person's question. And I thought, you know what, if somebody in that group is asking that question, then somebody in my little realm has got to be curious about that as well. So that's what we're going to kind of go over today. First, I'm going to take you through, and I know I've talked about this before in other videos, but I'm going to kind of take you through the basics of how I make my soil. So that would be part of building my soil. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how I do that with soil that I put into bags and beds. Then I'm also going to talk about that a little bit with what I'm going to plan to do to start being able to use my earth here, you know, my actual yard to grow in the ground. Then the second thing I'm going to talk about is feeding your soil, because that's what she asked about, is what is building, what is feeding me. And so I also want to say that if in watching this you've already bought some other just kind of random bag of soil to get you going, this is the time to know that it's okay with what you did, but now since you're there, don't throw that soil out, start feeding that soil. So I'm going to show you how I go back and feed my soil in my bags and both in my raised beds, and then also if I was growing in the ground, how I would also build or continue to feed that soil. So that's the cool thing about starting with a good soil base. And if you don't necessarily start with the best soil base, then I think that's a way that you can improve that soil, because that's kind of one of the primary characteristics of being able to garden, is having a good base. So once you got a good base, and you just got to figure out your watering and sunlight, and then it's kind of a balancing game between those things. At the end, I'm going to share with you 3 things that I am just so in love with that are going in on my garden right now. But I hope this is helpful to you. And I also want to say that we're for sure going to do our seed and plant swap this Saturday, October 9th, at 9 o'clock at Summer Winds on 67th Avenue in Bell. So if you can come. If you've got seeds from your garden that you've harvested, great. If you've got just a bunch of seeds that you can share, great. If you've got some starts, extra transplants that you've got going that are more than what you planted more than you need, great, bring and share those. Or if you want to go into Summer Winds and shop and maybe get like a 6-pack of something where you only need 1, then you're welcome to come out and share those with whoever's out there, because that's kind of what we do. We shop, we share, we hang out, we fellowship. So I hope to see as many of you that'd like to come, and trust me, this won't be, we'll do one again in like about January. So if you don't if you don't get to this one, you didn't miss out on life, okay? And before we jump into everything that we're gonna do, I wanted to introduce you to my new best friend. I found this yesterday. One of you had mentioned to me that Off had a botanical blend, and so far I put this on last night, no mosquitoes. Now it was about to rain, but today I'm almost under the impression that the mosquitoes are gone, because this stuff right here, I just put it on like lotion, and they've got a spray, but like, who wants to inhale more stuff, you know? But this right here, if you're still battling mosquitoes, find this somewhere. I found it at Fry's. There were 2 of them. I should have bought both of them, but I was like, just wait and see if it really works. So let's get out here and start talking about building and feeding your soil. And then if you feel like it, stick around to see what my 3 favorite things are that are going on in the garden right now. Here we have 2 of the 3 elements that I use to actually make my soil or build my soil up for a bag or for a bed. And I'll talk in a minute about what I would be doing if I was working with doing in-ground. So this is a vermiculite. This is probably one of the more costly parts of the mix, because it's about $22 a bag. This is peat moss. You can get this big bale, that's about half of a bale, for about $12. And if you're concerned about the sustainability of peat moss, then you could also, you know, do like cocoa coir. You could get a brick of cocoa coir and use that to be the role of the peat moss. And then the third element of my soil is always going to be compost. Now, when you're first making my soil blend, I use 3 different types of compost. So it'd probably be a bag of that. It'd be a bag of earthworm castings, or castings, not earthworm, worm castings. I'm thinking about the brands I buy from. So it'd be this kind of compost, or any, say 1 compost, 1 casting, and then I usually throw in a bag of mushroom compost. So in the beginning, that creates diversity in the compost. So then it's just a 3-part game. So no matter how much you're making, big or small, just use 3 parts. So mix all of that original compost together, the 3 different kinds. So that's your compost pile. And then there's the vermiculite, and then there's the peat moss, or if you wanted to use cocoa coir. So then it's just 3 parts of that. So I often use a 5-gallon bucket. 5-gallon bucket of each makes me about 2.5 bags. Like I can fill up 2.5 of these 10-gallon bags, usually by doing the 5-gallon bucket of each. So that's how I make my soil. So this is just kind of a look at because I made this up before I moved, because I was filling up a bunch of bags, and now I have it on hand because I use my soil anymore as my seedling mix. So now I can just come over here, get some soil. Now the thing about using the peat moss is that you really have to hydrate and train your new soil to take and hold water. And once you do that, it's going to be awesome for you. But in the beginning, you can't fill up a container with this and then just start adding water. So what I usually do if I'm doing a bag is I'll put like that much in the bag, I'll water it down, soak it one more time, fill it up to, you know, and I do it kind of in layers like that until I get it saturated, because the reason why we use the peat moss is because it holds water for us. And so that's something that we wanted to do, but you kind of have to train it to do that. So this is a look at what mine looks like. There's a little bit of perlite in this just because I had about a half bag left and I didn't want to carry around a half bag. So this is my finished soil mix, and if I want to, I can sift it down smaller for my seedling mix. I usually just kind of take out the big pieces, but that's a look at what it looks like. And this is the blend that's in my bed, it's in all my bags, and I've almost never varied from this blend. And there's things I've done at other times, like anymore when I make this soil, I usually throw in like a handful of fertilizer, azomite, kelp meal, just some extra things. And those are not things that you have to do. Those are things that over time I've come to like doing. Okay, but in the beginning you can just really start with that basic, and you don't have to buy as big a bags of things as I've got, but if you do, then you have them and you can make, because see, like right now if I wanted to make soil, I can make a good sized batch of soil. But I'll say the bigger you buy, you're gonna pay less. So you can get a bag of perlite, or of course vermiculite, that's smaller, but you're gonna pay like $12 for it. So 12 plus 12, you could have had a giant bag. So why not just do that, especially if you've got the space. So that's how I make my soil. And like I said, in a second I'm going to show you how I build my soil. So like after a plant dies or at the end of a season, I'm going to show you the things that I do to build that up. So this row of bags here, I went to work on yesterday evening, hoping that I could get them done, because it looked like it was going to really start raining pretty quick yesterday evening, but it didn't. So this is an example of a way that I quote unquote fed these bags, because I treat my bags the same way that I do a raised bed. and the same way that I would if I was building and feeding the soil in my yard, like if I had an in-ground garden bed. So what that means for me is that once the plants have been spent, I go back and I top the bags, the beds, whatever the surface is, with at least about 2 inches of compost. Now, and other times I have been known to throw in like a handful of azomite, maybe some kelp meal. I always, when I plant my transplants, put my sprinkler or put my fertilizer in the hole, so I don't tend to, do a bunch of fertilizer in the bag. And so what I did with these is I came in and I pulled back, because a lot of the seeds here from the tree were like, you can see over there how it's almost become like a mulch of its own. So I pulled those out back, and then I went in and I put my compost in. That's what you see there. And then I went in and went ahead and put my mulch on top. So now all I have to do when I get ready to do my seedling is I can just come in, back up the mulch, drop my seedling in there, and then it's got a nice, wonderful place to grow. So these bags still need to be worked on. So like I said, I'll come in and I don't like to mess with this with my bare hands because those seeds are kind of prickly, but I'm gonna back up the seeds until I just get to this part of the soil that's already there. And then, like I said, I'm gonna go in and backfill it with about 2 inches or so of compost, and then I'll top it off with mulch, and I'll water it in. So that's why I did these before it rained, because now the rain did my work and got these kind of watered in for me. And now as I'm ready to start planting, they're ready for me to start planting as well. So that's a little tip on feeding your soil. Now, there's a lot of different ways to go about working with your native soil. The first thing, obviously, is you've got to find a way to combat the grass. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start practicing with this over here along my fence, because there's a lot of things that I want to do come spring along this fence. And in order to be there, I need to have this being something that can grow in. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I've been hoarding cardboard, and I've been hoarding my grass clippings. So I'm gonna come along here and I'm gonna put down a line of cardboard. And then on top of the cardboard, I'm gonna come back with my grass clippings. And right now they're in a big container, like a trash can that's got holes in the bottom. So they might be a little damp, but once I've got this in place, then instead of putting them in the can, I can just put them over here. Then on top of that, I'm going to use the remains of my bales here after the watermelon dies. And even though the pumpkin looks okay, I know it's like squash bug ready. So that, and I've also got some alfalfa left from when the bunny was a baby. So I'm going to top that out. So the goal of that is that I'm going to be smothering the soil at this, smothering the grass at the same time building the soil to do what I want it to do. Now, I know from a guy at Whitfield Nursery who does a little radio station on Saturday mornings that where I live, this is prime soil to be growing in. So I might not have to deal with the clay and the hard caliche that some other people do, but that's another reason why, as a part of building soil, after the hay that I put on there, it's going to be compost, it's going to be cow manure, and those things are going to be allowed to settle here. And I might try to grow a couple of sunflowers in it, because I've just got seedlings for, I've got a couple right now ready to go. But otherwise, that's what I'm going to do to work to practice using this soil down here, because I want to put a lot of vining things along here next year, and I want to do it in the earth. So that is a way that you could build your soil using your native ground. And then again, after the end of a season, I would come back here and I would layer another layer of compost on here. There's some people on irrigated lots that do a little bit of tilling, and I know that there's a lot of negatives about tilling, but you kind of have to make some picks and choices, and understanding why tilling's bad, in large scale projects, and maybe why tilling in your own yard on little small things to keep the grass out might be, beneficial to you. So it's always what's the way out here, Here's my 3 favorite things that I've got going on in the garden right now. The first really fun thing I want to share with you are these sweet little asparagus that I have coming up. So asparagus are a super long game. It can take up to 30 days for them to even germinate, and these came up in about 3 weeks, and then there's one little baby coming up here. So these have to grow for at least a year to get their roots established. I've got another spot over here that I meant to plant, but these had actually got to put away with some tomato seeds, so I'm gonna get those planted in there today to get them going. But that's one thing that I'm just super thrilled and excited about, is those wee little asparagus. Number 2 is I'm in love with my crazy, waited so late to get itself going, watermelon. But look at that! This is like the biggest so far, most successful watermelon that we have going, and we just every day get so thrilled to come out here and see it get bigger and bigger. So that's how big it is now. We're probably gonna get some little thing up here to secure it and hold it, because looks like it's gonna be a big one. And I don't think there's any more right now on there, but oh, there's a little one right there, and looks like it may have gotten pollinated, because it's definitely bigger than a wee babe. So the bees have really been active on this. So that's number 2. My third favorite thing that I've got going on right now is this awesome Rosella hibiscus. The flowers are so beautiful, and so the flowers come, and once the flower is done, the calyx, which is also where the seeds are, starts to form. So you want to let these get as big as they can, at least like an inch across. So that one's almost ready. Yesterday I harvested a couple, and I'll show you what those look like. So I'm so excited. Well, I hope you enjoyed my little rambling on about building and feeding soil. And as always, if you've got any questions, you want to go deeper into it, hit me up in the comments, catch me over at Instagram, come join my Facebook group. Everybody there is helpful, even though I'm not always there all the time. But it's a great community to help you get growing your own food. So have the best day ever. Hopefully you get a little bit more rain. I'm hoping for just a little bit more. There's some clouds out. So see you soon.